What started as a joke turns into something dangerously real when Alex Carter, a routine-loving software developer, agrees to a spontaneous fake marriage with the wild and mysterious Zoey Reyes. But as secrets unravel and sparks turn into something more, the line between pretend and possible starts to blur. Hello family, welcome to Storytime with Imzi. Please subscribe and like, it means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. Alex Carter was elbow deep in a broken JavaScript function when his phone lit up with an incoming call. He ignored it, as he always did during debugging. Calls meant distraction, and distraction meant more hours lost to hunting for a missing bracket or some other soul-crushing syntax error. The ringtone stopped. 2 seconds later, it buzzed again. Persistent, he muttered. He jabbed the spacebar and snatched the phone, already annoyed. Yeah, Alex. A familiar voice burst through the speaker with a level of energy entirely incompatible with Thursday afternoons and broken code. Tell me your bag is packed. Alex blinked. What? It's me, Maya. Her voice had that same bright, caffeinated sparkle it always had, even back in college. You're free this weekend, right? He leaned back in his chair, stretching. Sure. Planning to reorganize my spice rack. Why? I'm getting married. Alex blinked again. You're what? Married. Tying the knot. Saying I do. This Saturday. There was a silence, so long she actually had to check if the call dropped. Alex, you weren't even dating anyone last I heard. Details. She laughed like that explained everything. Look, it's kind of last minute, I know. But I want you there. Destination wedding. Small group. Ocean views. Booze. Also, I'm panicking a little, and I need someone to glare judgmentally at me if I start to bolt. Alex rubbed a hand across his face. Destination where? Marlin Bay. Tiny coastal town. 2 hours out. You'll love it. It's got like 6 streets and 1 bar. I'll text you the address. Please come. He hesitated. There was a lot to say. He hadn't seen Maya in over a year. They used to be inseparable, but time and adulthood had a nasty way of creating space where connection used to be. He owed her, though. She was the one who sat through every one of his failed relationships with snacks and sarcasm. Fine, he said finally. But I swear to God, if this is an elaborate MLM pitch. It's not. She laughed. But bring something nice to wear. Ceremony's sunset. Oh, and you'll be bunking in a shared Airbnb. Hope that's okay. Shared with who? No clue. Mutuals. Be social. She hung up before he could protest. Alex stared at the phone, then at the open laptop where his broken code waited like a hungry beast. He closed it slowly. Maya. Married. This weekend. In a town that sounded made up. It was so wildly unlike her, and so wildly unlike his usual plans, that he couldn't help but smirk. You never would have guessed, he muttered to himself, standing to grab his overnight bag, that in 48 hours you'd be going to a wedding. What he didn't know, not even in the furthest corner of his logical, skeptical mind, was that it wouldn't be Maya's vows that changed everything that weekend. It would be his. The drive to Marlin Bay was half interstate, half backroads that twisted through sleepy towns with rusted gas stations and bait shops older than the moon landing. Alex rolled down the window somewhere around exit 42, letting the salt in the air sting his face as the ocean came into view. The town itself appeared like an afterthought, just as Maya described. 6 streets, 1 bar, and a long stretch of beach that seemed to roll into infinity. The Airbnb was a beach house, weathered wood, chipping paint, and an air of semi-chaotic charm. Alex arrived to find a few cars already out front, and the door swinging open in the breeze. Inside, bags littered the hallway, music drifted from upstairs, and a dog that didn't seem to belong to anyone kept wagging at whoever gave it attention. Alex dumped his stuff in the nearest empty room and fled before he had to meet too many strangers at once. His social battery needed easing into this. He made his way down to the 1 bar in town, the Driftwood Lounge. It looked like it had once been a lifeguard station and now made its living serving overpriced rum and shrimp baskets to sunburnt tourists. The place was almost empty when he walked in, just after 6. A couple of locals hovered near the dartboard, and a bearded bartender nodded a silent welcome as Alex made his way to the counter. He ordered a beer, then turned around to scan the place, and saw her. She was sitting at the far end of the bar, stirring a drink with a cocktail soared like it had insulted her family. Short black dress, combat boots, and an expression that danced somewhere between curiosity and amusement. She looked like the kind of person who didn't just know what she wanted, but had already gotten it and was deciding whether it was boring now. She noticed him looking, smirked, raised her glass. Alex blinked, then offered a tight, polite nod. It was instinct, but she didn't look away. "You one of the groomsmen?" she asked, loud enough to be heard across the short distance. He hesitated, then walked a little closer. "No, just a guest. Friend of the bride." She made a show of looking him up and down. "You don't scream, wedding enthusiast." "I don't scream much of anything unless someone breaks production code on a Friday." She snorted into her drink. "Developer?" He nodded. "You?" She grinned. "Criminal defense lawyer." Alex raised an eyebrow. "Don't worry, I'm not working right now," she added, finishing her drink and setting the empty glass down. "Name's Zoey." "Alex." They shook hands, hers warm and firm, like she meant it. He sat down a stool away, careful not to crowd, but she scooted one seat closer anyway. The bartender came over. She gestured to Alex's beer. "Put his on my tab. I can pay for my." "I know." Her eyes twinkled. "I wanted to." He studied her a beat longer. "So how do you know Maya?" She paused, just a flicker. "Let's just say we have overlapping circles." Cryptic, but not the defensive kind of cryptic. More like she enjoyed holding cards close to her chest. He respected that. The conversation slipped easily into other things. Terrible movies, overrated podcasts, the weirdness of growing up in the internet age. She had a dry wit that matched his own, and when she laughed, it was with her whole face. 2 beers in, they were at a corner table with a plate of onion rings between them and a shared playlist of college indie rock echoing from the speakers. He told her about the time he got fired from his first job for deleting a client's staging server by accident. She told him about a DUI defendant who once tried to represent himself by quoting Legally Blonde. They were both half drunk by the time the sun began to set outside the bar window, painting the sky in violent oranges and purples. "You ever think about marriage?" she asked suddenly, swirling her drink. Alex chuckled. "Only when I see people who clearly shouldn't have done it." "That's fair." She leaned back, expression unreadable now. "But what if it wasn't about the whole fairy tale thing? What if it was, I don't know, a dare? A dare? Yeah. Like, could 2 people just say, screw it, and see what happens?" He studied her. The glint in her eye wasn't drunk. It was something else. Mischief maybe. Or loneliness dressed up as bravado. "I think," he said carefully, "that would depend on the dare." She smiled slowly. "Good answer." The rest of the night passed in a blur of laughter, close glances, and one badly sung rendition of Total Eclipse of the Heart on the karaoke machine. At some point, she took his hand. At some point after that, neither of them let go. They didn't kiss that night. But Alex knew, as he walked back to the Airbnb under the heavy stars and sea breeze, that something had just shifted. And if anyone had told him he'd just met the woman he'd marry in less than 2 days, he'd have laughed them right out of the bar. By the time the rehearsal dinner rolled around on Friday night, Alex had gotten used to 2 things: the ever-present scent of salt water baked into his clothes, and Zoey appearing just when he least expected her, and exactly when he wanted her to. The dinner was hosted at a quirky little seaside inn with paper lanterns strung from the rafters and mismatched chairs arranged around long tables. The food was suspiciously good for a small town: grilled oysters, basil pasta, hand-squeezed lemonade that absolutely had vodka in it. Guests were everywhere, buzzing, glowing, either drunk or sun-kissed or both. Alex stuck to the edge of the social chaos, wine glass in hand, when Zoey appeared beside him, dressed in something that shimmered like ocean water under the lantern light. "You clean up," she said, giving him a slow once-over. "Better than I expected." He smirked. "You look like a Bond girl on vacation. Don't think I didn't consider packing a poison ring." They sat together again. And by now, people were beginning to notice. By dessert, the group had migrated from tables to the deck that overlooked the ocean. Someone pulled out a speaker, someone else a bottle of tequila, and inevitably, a game of truth or dare broke out. It started innocent. "What's your most embarrassing high school moment?" And, "I dare you to eat a spoonful of hot sauce." But predictably, things spiraled. "Zoey," said a bridesmaid named Tessa, who was now on her fourth shot and wearing a flower crown someone dared her to steal from the centerpiece. "Truth or dare?" Zoey grinned and leaned forward. "Dare." Tessa's eyes lit up. "I dare you to propose to someone." Laughter erupted, but Zoey didn't flinch. Her eyes flicked sideways. Right to Alex. He raised an eyebrow. "Don't look at me. I'm not emotionally equipped for proposals unless they're PowerPoint-based." "Okay," Zoey said, undeterred. She stood up, swaying slightly in the wind, glass raised high. "Alexander Carter." "Oh no. You are sarcastic, slightly neurotic, suspiciously handsome, and you make a mean onion ring toast. Will you marry me?" People hooted. Phones came out. Alex was already flushing red, trying to wave her down. "Okay, funny, haha. Don't be a coward," Zoey teased. Someone, he didn't even know who, yelled, "I dare you to say yes." Another voice joined in, then another. "Do it. Come on. Marry her, Carter. It was just a joke. A party thing. Nothing serious." So why did he suddenly feel like the ground was tilting slightly beneath him? He looked at Zoey. Her expression hadn't changed. Still smiling. But beneath it, something else. A question, maybe. A challenge. "Screw it," he said. Gasps. Cheers. Screaming. Zoey laughed like she'd won a bet. Alex downed the rest of his wine in one swig. Okay, Tessa said, clapping. "New dare. You two have to actually go through with it. Courthouse wedding. Tomorrow. Noon." Alex's eyebrows shot up. "That's not how. It's just a dare," Zoey said smoothly. "You scared?" "I'm not scared," he said before he could stop himself. That damn smirk. "Then prove it." A chorus of drunken approval. Phones were already Googling the nearest clerk's office. Someone even promised to be a witness. Another shouted, "I'll bring confetti." Alex laughed nervously, but the sound didn't quite make it to his stomach. "This is the dumbest thing I've ever agreed to." Zoey leaned in. "You haven't even heard my vows yet." And just like that, it was settled. A dare. A prank. A story to tell. They went back to the Airbnb a little after midnight, not holding hands this time, not quite touching, but walking just close enough that the space between them buzzed. As Alex climbed into bed, heart still thumping beneath layers of tequila and adrenaline, he tried to convince himself it was all part of the game. Temporary. Harmless. But something in her voice when she said "prove it," and something in his gut, told him that this wasn't just about dares anymore. The morning sun in Marlin Bay was unnecessarily bright. Alex woke up with a mouth like sandpaper and a head that pulsed in protest to even the softest sound. The gentle crash of waves, birds outside, someone frying eggs in the kitchen and laughing too loud. It all felt vaguely hostile. For a few dazed minutes, he lay on his back, staring at the ceiling fan creaking above him, trying to remember if the events of last night had actually happened or if he'd dreamt it all. But no, his phone had photographic proof. There it was, Zoey on one knee, mock proposing with a drink umbrella in hand while half the party screamed in delight. And then, oh God, the group dare. The courthouse. Noon. He groaned and sat up. Downstairs, the Airbnb kitchen was full of people in pajamas and swimsuits, nursing coffee and gossip. Someone shouted, "Morning, Grimzilla." Laughter followed. Alex waved it off with a groggy smile and scanned the room for Zoey. She wasn't there. A text buzzed his phone. "Zoey, I'm at the diner. Come meet me. We have a wedding to plan, apparently." The Marlin Bay diner looked like it hadn't changed since 1962. Inside, the AC was too cold and the coffee was too strong. Zoey was in a booth by the window, sipping orange juice and reading a newspaper like she wasn't planning to get fake married in 2 hours. "You're chipper for someone who peer-pressured me into legal matrimony," Alex said as he slid into the seat across from her. She grinned. "You didn't have to say yes." He gave her a look. "You dared me in front of 20 screaming adults. I had no choice. There was tequila and peer validation involved." Zoey shrugged, unbothered. "So, you want to bail?" Alex blinked. "Look," she said, setting the paper aside. "We don't have to do it. It was a joke. No one expects us to actually follow through. We laugh, we tell the story, we move on with our lives." He stared at her for a long moment, then tilted his head. "You want to back out?" She sipped her juice. "I didn't say that." Okay. He nodded. "Let's do it." Zoey leaned back, studying him. "You serious?" "Dead serious. Let's see this joke through. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the highlight of my year." She narrowed her eyes, a slow grin spreading. "You are so weird. You're the one proposing to strangers over shrimp cocktail." "I didn't hear a no." He flagged the waitress and ordered pancakes. "Nope. You didn't." They arrived at the Marlin Bay Town Hall at 11:57 a.m., still unsure if it was even open on weekends. It was. A bored clerk with a salt and pepper ponytail handed them the marriage license paperwork with zero fanfare. "You two tourists?" she asked without looking up. "Something like that," Zoey said. There were boxes to check. Full legal names. Signatures. 2 random witnesses from the rehearsal party showed up just in time, giggling like children at a school play. One of them, Tessa of course, brought a veil made from napkins and a ribbon. The officiant, a man who looked like he moonlighted as a bait shop owner, cleared his throat and opened a thin black folder. "Ready?" Alex looked at Zoey. Her eyes flickered, just for a second, with something unreadable. "You still in?" she asked. He offered her his arm. "Always wanted to be part of a stunt marriage." She laughed. The ceremony took 5 minutes. The vows were improvised. "I promised to take this whole thing way too seriously," Zoey said, smirking. "I promise to remind you of this day every time we argue about which pizza toppings are acceptable," Alex replied. There were chuckles. The clerk asked the question, "Do you, Alexander Carter, take Zoey Reyes to be your lawfully wedded wife?" He looked at her. Pause. Then, "Yeah, I do." "And do you, Zoey Reyes, take Alexander Carter?" "I do," she said, cutting him off. And just like that, it was done. A legal signature. A printed certificate. 2 confused but amused witnesses. Married. They walked out into the bright noon sun, husband and wife, blinking at each other like they'd stepped out of someone else's body. Zoey broke the silence. "So lunch?" Alex laughed. "Lunch." They walked down the street together, their hands brushing. They didn't hold hands. Not yet. But something had shifted again. And this time, neither of them was quite sure how to shift it back. The afternoon after the wedding, their wedding, stretched out strange and golden like a movie montage without music. Zoey and Alex wandered the boardwalk as if they were tourists, which technically they were. But now with matching rings and a binding legal contract. They picked up ridiculous souvenirs, flip-flops with Bridezilla printed on the soles, a miniature snow globe filled with seashells and regret, a fridge magnet that read, "What happens in Marlin Bay gets annulled Monday." Neither of them bought it, though Zoey hovered over it longer than she'd admit. "So," she asked, as they sat on a crooked bench watching a street performer juggle fire, "what's the weirdest part of today for you?" Alex chewed on the thought. "That I've been married for 3 hours and haven't panicked once." "Really?" She cocked an eyebrow. He turned to her, serious now. "I mean, yeah. My friends have been trying to set me up with emotionally unavailable women and Pilates instructors for the past 2 years, and then you walk into a bar, and somehow we're filling out government forms the next day. And I don't hate it. That's weird, right?" Zoey nodded slowly. "Very weird. They shared a soft silence that somehow didn't itch. Around them, the town went on, families with strollers, teenage skateboarders, the faint buzz of music from an ice cream shop radio. Marlin Bay had that suspended-in-time quality that made it easy to pretend the outside world didn't exist. "So what about you?" he asked. "Weirdest part?" Zoey stared out at the ocean. "Honestly," she hesitated. "How? Not weird it feels." He glanced at her. She looked smaller in that moment. Not physically. Zoey always carried herself like she had an invisible spotlight trained on her. But emotionally, like something heavy was balanced just behind her eyes. "Were you ever actually going to tell me how you knew Maya?" he asked gently. Zoey didn't look at him right away. "Eventually. That's not a no." She took a long breath. "My dad was kind of a professional runner. Not in marathons, in responsibilities. Maya and I have the same father. Different moms. Different lives. She got the birthday parties and piano recitals. I got visitation every other Christmas and a therapist who said I had abandonment flavor." Alex blinked. "Wow. Yeah." She chuckled bitterly. "I came because, I don't know. I wanted to see her. Not even confront her. Just see her in real life. But I didn't expect to actually talk to her. And I definitely didn't expect to meet someone who'd say, 'I do,' before I even said hello." Alex took a moment to respond. "So you didn't come to crash the wedding?" "I came to ghost it," she said. "Just observe. Fly under the radar. Until you." He didn't know what to say to that. Part of him felt blindsided. The other part felt weirdly honored. Like he'd been allowed into a room that had always been locked. "I'm not mad," he said eventually. "Just surprised." Zoey looked over at him, vulnerability flickering like candlelight behind her usual armor. "You still think this is funny?" He leaned back. "Less funny now, but not in a bad way." They sat like that for a while, not needing to fill the space with more words. Eventually, they got ice cream. Vanilla for her, chocolate chip for him. They walked along the pier, accidentally bumping elbows. They didn't talk about Monday. That night at the Airbnb, the others were still celebrating Maya's real wedding to come. Games, music, increasingly chaotic dance battles. But Alex and Zoey slipped away. Not together, not in some grand romantic gesture, but like people who suddenly needed quieter air to breathe. In the dim hallway between their two rooms, Zoey paused. "So, husband," she said lightly, but her voice had an edge. "Wife," Alex replied, trying to match her tone and failing. "I've had one hell of a day." "Same." They didn't kiss. They didn't touch. But her hand lingered on the doorknob longer than it needed to, and when she looked back at him, there was something unspoken, but not unsure, in her gaze. "Good night, Alex." "Good night, Zoey." And then the door closed with a soft click. He stood there for a moment, forehead against the wall, the realization sinking in like cold water. This joke had gone too far. And somehow it wasn't far enough. Saturday morning brought the sound of gulls and distant clapping waves, and a text from Maya. "Maya, brunch. You're coming. 10 sharp. Don't flake, husband." Alex groaned and rolled over in bed. His first thought wasn't about pancakes or wedding speeches. It was Zoey. She'd disappeared last night. Not rudely. Not dramatically. Just vanished. No knock. No joke. No snarky goodnight text. The space she'd left felt sharper than it had any right to. He wandered down to brunch at a beachside cafe the wedding party had practically taken over. Mimosas were flowing. Everyone was glowing in that pre-wedding haze of optimism and alcohol. Maya stood near the center table in a white sundress, practically levitating. "Carter," she called, pulling him into a hug. "I still can't believe you did it." "Neither can I," he said honestly, hugging her back. "So, where's your wife?" she asked, nudging him with a conspiratorial wink. That was the moment Alex realized he had no idea. Zoey wasn't at brunch. She wasn't on the beach. She wasn't in town. Not at the bar, the boardwalk, or the kitschy candle shop they'd made fun of yesterday. By noon, Alex was pacing near the edge of the dunes, texting her, calling her, even circling back to the courthouse on a dumb hunch. He told himself he wasn't panicking, that this wasn't some movie moment where the girl runs away and the guy realizes he actually cares. But when he finally saw her, standing barefoot on the rocks by the water, alone, arms folded, wind in her hair, he felt the relief hit his chest like a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "You planning to swim back to wherever you came from?" he called. Zoey didn't turn. "You found me. Didn't know I was looking until I realized you were gone." Now she turned. Her face was calm, but her eyes held something brittle. "Sorry. I just needed air. And space." Alex walked toward her slowly. "You okay?" She didn't answer immediately. "I talked to Maya this morning," she said finally, her voice quiet. "She doesn't know who I am." Alex blinked. "What?" Zoey tucked her hair behind her ear. "I thought maybe, some part of me thought, she'd recognize me. That there'd be this moment. Like in movies. We'd lock eyes. And she'd just know." Alex stood beside her now, silence stretching between them like a taut thread. "But she didn't," Zoey went on. "I was just another guest at her wedding. She even asked if I was friends with the guy who married himself into the group. That's you, by the way." He laughed softly. "Charming." Zoey smiled for a second. Then it dropped. "She doesn't know me. Or maybe she does, and she chose not to say anything. Either way, it doesn't matter." Her voice trembled just once. "I came here thinking I wanted some kind of closure. But now, I think I just wanted to feel like I wasn't completely erased." Alex took a long breath. The waves crashed softly beneath them, but his thoughts were louder. "I don't think people disappear because others forget them," he said. "You're here. You're real. You crashed into my life like," he paused, searching, "like a plot twist I didn't see coming. You're not erased, Zoey. Not to me." She looked up at him slowly. Their eyes locked. It was the first time neither of them smiled to lighten the mood. There was nothing funny about this moment. Just two people, legally bound, emotionally tangled, standing on the edge of something neither of them had words for yet. Zoey spoke first. "Do you regret it?" He didn't even hesitate. "No." She exhaled, shaky. "Me neither." He reached out, tentative, and took her hand. Her fingers curled into his like muscle memory, like it had been waiting to happen since that first night in the bar. "You want to talk to Maya?" he asked. Zoey shook her head. "Not today." "Fair." They stood there together, watching the horizon, saying nothing for a long time. Their hands stayed linked. Neither let go. Whatever this was, real or reckless, it had already become something more than a dare. And neither of them wanted to undo it. The wedding was perfect. Too perfect, in Alex's opinion. The kind of perfect that made you feel like something had to go wrong just to keep the universe in balance. The ceremony took place on the beach at golden hour, with sunlight catching in Maya's curls and laughter rolling like the tide. People cried. Someone's dog barked at the wrong moment. The bride and groom kissed as the sky exploded in color, and every guest instinctively reached for their phones like the moment had to be captured to be believed. Alex stood near the back, hands tucked in his pockets, Zoey at his side in a backless emerald green dress that made it extremely hard to concentrate on the whole someone else's wedding thing. He kept sneaking glances at her. She kept pretending not to notice. "You think she'd still want to be friends if she knew who I was?" Zoey asked under her breath. Alex watched Maya laugh with her new husband, glowing in a way only newlyweds and lottery winners seemed to glow. "I think she'd have questions," he admitted. Zoey nodded, eyes distant. "I don't know if I want to be an answer." He reached for her hand without thinking. She let him take it. They didn't speak again until the reception, where the drinks flowed freely, and every table had centerpieces made of driftwood and tiny glass bottles with handwritten notes inside. Zoey popped one open and read it aloud. "May your love be modern enough to survive the times, but old-fashioned enough to last forever." She scoffed, putting it back. "Sounds like someone's Instagram caption got lost at sea." Alex smirked. "You're in a real mood tonight." "Yeah, well. Happens when you attend your sister's wedding as her uninvited secret sibling while legally married to a guy you met 2 days ago." Fair. They danced. Poorly. Laughing the whole time, they fumbled through a waltz-turned-salsa-turned-chaos, drawing amused looks from other guests. Then, after a few songs and too many drinks, Maya took the mic for her thank you speech. She stood on a wooden crate barefoot, holding a glass of champagne and beaming at the crowd. I know everyone says this, but seriously, I've never felt so loved. I've never felt so known. And I know weddings are about beginnings, but they're also about the people who got you to the beginning. She glanced at her husband, then back at the crowd. If I've learned anything lately, it's that love is weird. It's messy. Sometimes it looks like a spark. Sometimes it looks like a slow burn. And sometimes, she said with a grin, it looks like a guy getting fake married to a woman he met at a bar just to win a dare. Laughter erupted. All eyes turned to Alex and Zoey. Alex raised his glass in mock defeat. Zoey gave a little curtsy. But seriously, Maya said, her voice softening, sometimes life hands you something unexpected. And if you're lucky, and I mean really lucky, you'll realize what you were handed isn't a joke, or a distraction, or a coincidence. It's a door. And it's up to you whether you walk through it. The crowd cheered. Alex didn't hear the rest of the speech. Because Zoey was looking at him. Not smirking. Not teasing. Just looking. And for the first time since the courthouse, she looked afraid. They slipped away just before midnight. No one noticed. They sat on the back steps of the inn, barefoot, champagne bottle between them. So, she said quietly, are we walking through it? Alex tilted his head toward her. You tell me. She hugged her knees. You said this started as a joke. Then a story. Then something you didn't regret. I meant that. She met his eyes. And now. Alex took a deep breath. The salt air clung to his skin, but the moment felt clean. Honest. Now, he said, I think I want to see what happens if we don't undo it. Zoey stared at him. Her lip trembled for half a second before she caught it with her teeth. This is crazy, she whispered. Yeah, he said, smiling. But so are we. She laughed, shaky, breathless, and leaned her head against his shoulder. And they sat like that, legally bound, emotionally raw, quietly daring the world to challenge whatever this was. Whatever it was no longer a game. The morning after Maya's wedding was quiet in that post-storm kind of way. Empty champagne bottles on the porch, stray flower petals floating in puddles, seagulls picking over forgotten hors d'oeuvres. Alex stood at the edge of the pier with 2 coffees in hand, watching the tide roll in and out like it couldn't decide whether it was coming or going. Fitting. Behind him, footsteps padded over the wood. Barefoot, of course. Zoey never wore shoes when she didn't have to. She took the coffee without a word, sipping it slowly as they watched a crab scuttle across a piling. So, she said after a long silence, is now the part where we get it annulled and awkwardly pretend this never happened? Alex glanced sideways. Is that what you want? She hesitated. I don't know, she said. That's the thing. I should want that. I thought I would want that. This wasn't supposed to stick. He nodded. I get it. It wasn't supposed to feel like anything real. Zoey tilted her head. And yet, he chuckled. And yet here we are. Married. No regrets. Just confused as hell. She smiled, but it was gentler now. You're not just saying that because I'm holding hot coffee, are you? Little bit, yeah. They both laughed. Then Zoey went quiet again, watching the waves, her expression unreadable. Do you think it matters? She asked. That it happened backwards? You mean marriage first, relationship later? She nodded. Alex thought about it. I think everything we've been told about how love's supposed to work is just someone else's guess. And what's your guess? That if you find someone who makes the quiet parts of life feel full and the loud parts less terrifying, you don't walk away just because it started weird. She looked down at her coffee. You think I make your life feel full? I think, he said slowly, you make my life feel different. And different was exactly what I didn't know I needed. A long pause followed, the kind that made room for decisions. I was thinking, she said, not looking at him. What if we didn't undo it? Alex blinked. She went on. Not as a joke. Not for the story. Just, what if we gave it a shot? For real. Dated like normal people. Figured it out. We've already done the scary part. He smiled, breath caught somewhere between disbelief and quiet hope. Are you asking me to stay married to you, Zoey Reyes? She nudged him with her shoulder. Don't make it weird. Too late. You proposed first, remember? Zoey rolled her eyes. Still the most efficient proposal of my life. He reached for her hand. This time she let him. They stood on the pier, sun warming their backs, fingers laced in something solid. This wasn't about a dare anymore. It wasn't about tequila or spontaneity or pretending it didn't mean something. This was something. They didn't have a plan. They didn't need one. Just two people starting at the middle, choosing, intentionally, wholeheartedly, not to walk away. 48 hours ago, they'd been strangers in a bar. Now, they were walking into a future no one saw coming. Not even them.